Hello Cherries fans, happy Thursday to you. Hope you're doing well despite the gloomy weather outside. Saturday, I tell you what, there's going to be a storm on the pitch at Vitality Stadium as AFC Bournemouth entertain Wolverhampton Wanderers. The pressure is ramping up on Andoni Iraola. We haven't got a win on the board yet, and despite a bad start to the season in terms of the fixtures on paper, the last game against Everton saw a winnable game but a poor performance to go with it. We've had a couple of bad performances in a row. Against Arsenal, you can sort of forgive it based on the kind of aspirations that they've got. Against Everton, though, it was an unforgivable performance in places. So against Wolves, can we turn the screw? Can we get the points? Well, there's added needle to it, for Cherries fans at least, with the return of a certain Gary ONeil, who surely is going to have a point to prove. So to talk about it, we have got Dave here from the Wolves channel, Talking Wolves podcast, YouTube channel, all that good stuff. Dave, how you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, looking forward to Premier League football finally being back.
It's a bit spicy, this one, isn't it? With the added Gary ONeil factor. How's your season been from a Wolves perspective? Have you been happy with it?
Satisfied. I think, the season, and you guys would have seen from the outside, the summer at Wolves was just ridiculous. It was all over the place. Obviously, with Lopetegui leaving at really short notice and Gary ONeil coming in. And yeah, he had a slow start, but there were still some positive signs. There were some things like in the game against Ipswich in the Carabao Cup where we were 2-0 up and threw it away and lost 3-2. But then more recently, picking up an amazing result against Man City, beating them, and even, a positive point, you could say, against Villa at home as well. So started off all over the place, but slowly but surely, I think he's starting to find his rhythm as head coach at Wolves, and we're starting to pick up some positive results, thankfully.
What was the sentiment amongst Wolves fans when he got the job? Because, a number of Bournemouth fans were surprised, actually, that he got into Premier League management again so soon. We all thought that he might maybe dip into the Championship for a bit. But when Lopetegui went, it looked like he was the sort of main man that the bookies were focusing on. And sure enough, he got the job. What was the reaction at the time?
Mainly negative, to be completely honest. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to Gary ONeil, but I think when it was pretty well documented how poor Wolves were financially throughout the summer. And your manager leaves a week before the season. There's not going to be a huge pool of managers that are ready to take the job. And Wolves almost had to take the punt on someone that almost had something to prove, which I suppose is right for Gary ONeil. But I think if you asked every Wolves fan, Lopetegui's going to go, who do you want to be the next Wolves manager? Gary ONeil would not have been the answer for anybody. So straight away, I think that put that little bit of pressure onto him. And he's had a lot of support from the club, the players. Of course, his job is to make sure that happens on the pitch and we get the results and the points on the board. And I know a lot of Bournemouth fans, as he joined the club, sort of raised one or two concerns about how he approached things at Bournemouth. And I think we have probably still seen that at times at Wolves. But he's still a very young manager. He's still very inexperienced, and he's got almost to learn on the job. But he seems happy at the club. Everyone seems happy with how he's getting on. So yeah, let's see how he does.
You must have been licking your lips, though. Despite the fact you lost the first game this season, that was such a travesty. But
yeah,
you outplayed Manchester United, and I've never seen a performance like it. It was live on TV, and a lot of Bournemouth fans were tuning in, thinking, "How's Gary ONeil going to deal with this?" You completely outplayed them. You should have got the 3 points. You had so many chances to put it in the back of the net. You didn't. But surely at that point, you must be thinking, hang on a sec, this Gary ONeil's got something.
Yeah, well, yes and no, I suppose, because I think everybody, including myself, I went to Old Trafford that night. We almost went into that game and almost wrote ourselves off. We had no preparation under the new manager. There's been so much uncertainty. And then we put in a performance like that, which, at Old Trafford, if you're not scoring the goals and you obviously get quite a dubious penalty decision against you, obviously you're not going to get anything out of the game. But then a lot of fans all of a sudden said, well, Lopetegui's done all the preparation for this, so maybe this is, let's give a bit of time before we start heaping loads of praise onto Gary ONeil. But But like I said earlier, there've been some matches, even Liverpool, we lost 3-1. The first half was some of the best football I've seen at Molineux for a while. And then he almost, I don't know if he's changed something or the mentality changed, and we ended up losing that game 3-1. So I think that's, as a manager, he's just got to almost learn how to see games out. And I think that, by the sounds of things, that was an issue at Bournemouth as well, where he would sit on leads probably a little bit too early. And we have seen that at Wolves. So for him, it's just trying to get the right balance out of the players to see out these results.
Have your expectations changed as the season's gone on? I mean, I know it's still in its infancy, 8 games in, but a number of pundits were expecting Wolves to be in and around the relegation zone. Some people saying they'd get relegated. I think even when we did our predictions, we had them there and thereabouts. And that was based on a lot of the uncertainty this season, lack of signings, Julian Lopetegui going, etc. But I don't know, Gary ONeil seems to have brought some stability. What's the aim this season, and how far do you think you can go?
I think just try and keep out of the relegation mess, really. I think we had that last season, and Bruno Lage put us in a really bad position before the World Cup, and Lopetegui sort of had to come in. And although it wasn't pretty at times, he still picked up some fantastic results. He turned Molineux into a fortress, really, and picked up some big results. I think Gary ONeil was one of the few managers that got the better, actually, of Lopetegui at Molineux. So I think this season is just to stay out of that again. I'm not expecting anything unbelievable. I'm not expecting us to push for Europe or anything like that. A cup run would be nice, but obviously we're out of the Carabao Cup, so we'll have to see what the FA Cup can bring. But I think if we can stay sort of top end of the bottom half, I think, if you went back to August and offered me that, I would have snapped your arm off. So I think stay out of the relegation battle, sort of solidify ourselves once again as a Premier League team, and go from next season.
I mean, losing Nunes, of course, Neves, Cody, Jimenez, etc. I was worried at one point whether you would drop. I mean, I say worried as a Bournemouth fan. You want another 3 teams to be below you, but I don't know. It just feels like he's brought some stability to the side. But what about squad depth? Because you've got, honestly, like Neto on the right-hand side, he's world class. I think Hwang's done really well on the left as well, and you seem to have some really good balance there. But if you've got some injuries, like you have this weekend, you've got a couple of players that are out, suspension, etc. What's the squad depth like, and will it carry you through the season, do you think?
The depth is okay. I think there are still certain areas that need to improve. For argument's sake, we're playing a 5 at the back at the moment, so we've really only got 4 senior centre backs. And I think if you get a couple of suspensions or injuries, we'll probably be stuck. So I think in January there is still a little bit of money to spend after the Nunes sale, like you mentioned, just. And I think the wide players, like you say, Hwang and Neto, there's not a huge amount behind those guys, in the wide areas. So central midfield, we're stacked at the moment. We've got a lot of central midfielders. But yeah, I think, you mentioned Lamina suspended, Nelson Semedo suspended as well. But I think both of those are our players. I think Matt Doherty will probably start. Yeah. I think it'll be his first Premier League start since returning. And we've got a young midfielder, Boubacar Traoré, who's had quite a little bit of game time coming off the bench. So I think he'll come in for Lamina. So the straight swap's there, but you are right. There are certain areas of the team that we may get caught out with, throughout the season. But generally, the squad depth it's better than it has been in recent years anyway.
For us Bournemouth fans, it's a game that we're bricking ourselves about, really, because obviously we haven't got the win this season. Absolutely are desperate for it. For Wolves fans, is it? I suppose there's not the sort of desperation to get one over us as much as there is us over you, I suppose, because I suppose our board, our fans want to make a point that we've got the better manager now, but we're not really seeing it so far. Is there that kind of sentiment amongst Wolves fans?
No, I think you're right. I think Bournemouth, of course, I'm always excited to see Wolves play, but I think this game, from a Bournemouth perspective, has probably got more of an edge to it because of the whole Gary ONeil aspect, And I'm sure Gary ONeil probably hasn't said it directly to the Wolves players, but he'll know in the back of his mind that he wants to prove something to Bournemouth and the club. And so hopefully there is an edge from the Wolves side of things. But for Wolves fans, we're sort of going into this game as if it is any other Premier League game, really. We know it's going to be tough. Yeah. We know you guys have got a talented manager, albeit it's not working so far. And you're going to be desperate for a win, so it's going to be, especially away from home, it's going to be a tricky game.
What's the best way for Bournemouth to get at you if you sense a weakness within your side? If we're gonna get one over you, what's the best way to do it?
It's really interesting with Wolves because I think when we played Luton, I still can't put my finger on why we just really struggled to get into the game. And normally I would say keep a lot of the ball and press Wolves, but that's what City and Villa did in the last few weeks. We've just been fantastic on the counter attack. We've been, and in front of goal we've been lethal. So I don't know. I think the weaker areas, Matt Doherty, if he starts, is probably going to be one of the areas down at your left-hand side to possibly, try and test. But we've got big defenders, so lumping the ball into the area probably isn't going to be, anything of note. I think I'm quite disappointed how Wolves have dealt with things sort of through the channels at times. In between the centre backs and the wing backs, or even in between centre backs at times. I think Wolves have conceded goals too easily from that. But I know. I know on paper our results have been pretty poor, but Wolves have dealt with things fairly well. We're conceding very few goals, and thankfully now, which has been an issue for us, we've started to put the ball in the back of the net a little bit more as well. Yeah,
I mean, it must be frustrating when you've got obviously the draw at Luton and obviously like Crystal Palace. I thought that you could have maybe snuck something there, but you didn't quite get it over the line, and then somehow turning over Man City. Surely as a Wolves fan, that just gives you a little bit of hope now. Like in the big games, it's not necessarily a formality. I think that's been good for the whole of the Premier League, really, to see that result, because it just shows that the big teams are susceptible sometimes.
Yeah, especially Manchester City. They can go such a long time. Or they're fresh teams, or even if they play poorly, they'll grind out one goal win. But I think Gary ONeil, credit to him, because that was the game after the Ipswich game. He got so much stick for that because we were 2-0 up against the Championship team and we threw it away. And that's when even I sort of supported him and I turned a little bit then. And then he goes to Molineux on the Saturday. And I personally think it's almost the perfect tactical performance to beat Manchester City. He got it absolutely bang on, and the goal City scored was from a set piece, so we didn't concede from open play. It was fantastic, and that's why. But then going into this game, he's played a back five the last two games. Does he stick with that, or does he? No disrespect to Bournemouth, I think we could possibly get at you a bit more. Does he switch back to the back four, where yes, we might look a bit better going forward, but we are a lot more open defensively. So really depends how he approaches this game. I think Gary ONeil would. If you offered him a draw now, he'd probably take it. I think he just won't want to lose this game, to be honest. But yeah, I'm just happy that we have, under Nuno, we used to grind out some massive results, and we haven't really done that as much under Bruno Lage or even Lopetegui. So hopefully we can start seeing Gary ONeil pick up some points where we least expect them.
Yeah, one of his things for Bournemouth, he sometimes overthought certain situations, it seemed like, and he tried to be almost too tactical. So I'm hoping he's overthinking this one so we can at least have a chance of getting a result. I'm going to have to ask you, Dave, what's your prediction for this one? What are you going for?
Like I said, I think it will be a close game. Away from home, it's going to be tough for Wolves, but we've looked okay over the last few weeks, so I think it will be both teams to score, but I'm just about back Wolves to edge it 2-1.
No, okay, well that's what Dave thinks. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Of course, myself and Tom will be on our preview tomorrow. Dave, whereabouts can people see and listen to your stuff?
It's at Talking Walls everywhere: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. But yeah, if you want to, if Bournemouth beat us on Saturday, you want to see me crying down the camera, check us out on YouTube, Talking Walls.
Nice one, Dave. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.